Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We appreciate you joining us again today. We're back with another video for you here. We've had some requests for some additional revolver videos, and I also had a request to do another Taurus product. So with that in mind, I present to you today the Taurus 605 Protector Poly. This revolver has an interesting feature set, and we'll look at the value of it. And you know, this is almost a great revolver, and I'm going to get into the details about that for you in just a minute. Alright, once again, welcome back. We appreciate you joining us today. Before we get too far into this, we just want to take a moment, once again, thank you for coming to the channel today. If this is your first time, or if you've watched our videos before and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. If you look in the lower portion of your screen, down here on the right hand side, there's a little subscribe button. If you're on a computer, and you can hit that. If you're on a mobile device, just scroll down below there and hit subscribe and hit the bell icon, and you'll get new uploads when we make them. It helps us out a lot, and we do really appreciate it. So thanks for your support. So today, Taurus 605 Protector Poly, as in polymer. So when we talk about these guns, there's been popularity among these polymer revolvers, you know, for a lot of reasons, and these are no longer a brand new offering. There's a lot of different types of these that are out there, but of course people are looking at value, and the less expensive guns are really selling well right now. There's a increase in interest in new gun ownership, and a lot of these value guns are very popular right now. So we want to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this brand new example of the 605 Protector Poly that we can use for our tabletop today. We're going to get into all the goodies here. So one thing I always like to do is, you know, give you a bit of a comparison on size, so you can compare it with other revolvers. So taking another well-known revolver in the poly department here, we've got a Ruger LCR. So looking at them side by side, you can see there's a little bit of difference in the, you know, distribution of some of the size on this. A couple different things. Big thing you can see right off the back with the LCR versus the Taurus is the trigger guard. I'm going to come back to that one in just a minute. But the grip is not really all that much different. Now the grip on this Taurus is a little bit bigger. You can see it's a 3-finger sort of grip. You got a little bit of room there on the bottom of the grip for that finger, but they also give you a smaller 2-finger grip. And you know, some people have criticized the 2-finger grip as not being a very good option to hold the weapon, but you know, personally, just for me, I've got several other pistols that have got that same setup. A good example, okay, this little M&P doesn't even have grooves, but 2 fingers seem to fit it pretty well. For me, I don't have an issue with this gun because I do feel like I've got a good grip on it. Now it's a little bit better with the LCR because it does have the grooves here. So when I get a 2-finger grip on this gun, yeah, I feel really good about this. I don't feel like there's any way that this is going to come out of my hand. So you've got a lot of this kind of stuff going on with these little revolvers. And so this one, once again, if you changed over to the 2-finger grip, I don't really see what that would be a big deal, because to me it's a good weapon. So since we had the M&P, let's put it here too, so you can kind of see a difference on that side. This is the M&P Bodyguard 38 that we have right here, and you can see it's a little bit smaller overall. The grip is thinner. Once again, the dimensions are slightly different between these two, but it gives you an idea. You look at them as far as length, they're pretty close. Thickness. So if you've had one of these, or if you looked at both of them and you're, considering which one you might get, this might help you, with those size considerations. So let's get this out of the way here. And like I said, some of the other things we were going to talk about, I mentioned that grip. A 3-finger grip versus a 2-finger grip, to me, as long as I've got something solid to hang on to, I don't think is that all big of a deal. But the 2-finger grip obviously would be easier for concealment, and that's what we're talking about, of course, is concealed guns. So I'm not going to ding it for that. The one thing I am going to ding it for is I was talking about the trigger guard. So let me bring the LCR back for just a second here. Okay, you see that trigger guard? And you see my finger? I've got lots of space to come inside here and get inside that trigger guard. Now for a gun like this, as you can see, we're clear, and I've got plenty of room to come in here and manipulate that trigger. Okay, now this Taurus, I have a bit of a concern here because this is a really tiny opening, and I have big hands. Now for me, I'm not real comfortable with this little tiny trigger guard getting inside here. I feel kind of awkward getting my finger inside. Now, once again, that doesn't mean that the gun, is no good. But if you've got big hands like me, this is something you want to think about before you look at a gun like this. Because, obviously, the idea, if you're going to have to pull this gun out in a hurry, trying to get your finger inside that little hole might not be the easiest thing in the world to do. So manipulating that might be a little bit tough. So let's look at some of the other features here. So it's a double action, single action revolver, 5-shot, 357 Magnum. Okay, so obviously that means that you can use 38 special in the gun as well. And for me, a lot of times I do that purposely because the loads seem to be a little easier to control, get better accuracy, but you can do it either way. You've got, since it's a double single, obviously you have a exposed hammer here that you can pull back for your single action shot. And you've got a fiber optic front sight and you've got a notch rear sight. So that's what your sight picture looks like. And that's not too bad. I don't have a problem with this notch sight with a good visibility front sight, but I also think that it wouldn't have been that much trouble to put, a painted white dot on these rear sights just, for that much more precision on getting it lined up in the first place. Not trying to be too critical, but, when you're setting up a sight picture, especially in a hurry, I don't know about you, but I'll take all the help I can get. So looking at some of the other features on the firearm here, obviously, we said it was a 5-shot 357-38 special. It has a couple of features that are worth mentioning here. The cylinder release, if you notice, it has this little shroud around it, which helps with it being kind of an anti-snag thing, because if you're pulling this out, you've got that little shroud and it just transitions into the release there, so that's not likely to snag on anything. The hammer, if you notice, the hammer is curved, so it has a minimal profile of sticking up, which is also something that you would want in a carry gun, so I'd say that's a good option there. If you look back in here where the hammer is, if you can see in the light there, there's a little set screw down in there. And they give you this little hex key, and you can go down inside here, and you can see the set screw there, and then you can take your little tool here, go inside, and you turn it one turn. And after you do that, this is as far as it'll go. So you've got this lock. Well, then all you got to do is come back in here, same thing, find the set screw, and we'll turn it back again, counterclockwise. and it's unlocked again. Now, I haven't seen this personally on other revolvers, and I think that's an interesting feature. If you have small children in the house, I mean, obviously, I believe that the safest way is to always keep your firearm, in a safe, something that can't be accessed by anyone. But if your firearm has to be out for some reason, you can lock the trigger like that. So that's an interesting safety feature that they give you. Looking over the weapon here, a couple of observations. The fit and finish on this, I don't know if you can see that, but where these pieces come together, this looks a little cheap to me. I'm not sure what's going on here with how this is put together, but when I look at this, it just strikes me as very cheaply put together, and maybe this is just one that had a bad finish on it. But if you look at some of these others, as an example, you look at the little M&P here, really good fit and finish, really good build quality on everything all the way around. I pulled that cylinder out. That's another observation here I was going to make for you. But when you take the cylinder out, it actually takes quite a bit of effort, more than I thought, to bump that cylinder out of there. Not a big deal, but it took a lot more effort than I would have thought to do that. So fit and finish, and then the LCR, same thing. If you look at it, it looks like the LCR has a much better, overall fit and finish on the gun. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, the LCR, costs a bit more. The MSRP on this pistol is $392.94. That's per Taurus. And the LCRs go for around $579. So obviously it's a more expensive gun, but still, you've got other pistols that are in the same price range. Smith & Wesson makes other guns that are, right here in the same category, like a little Smith & Wesson 637, that goes for about $497. It's a little, obviously it's more than this, but the quality on that gun is really good. And there's several examples of that I've seen where the guns are, either close to price or not that much more, and they've got a lot better quality. I just was kind of taken back by that. So, you've got this, we talked about this sight right here, and I just want to mention this for a reason. If you look real closely, you can see where that sight is mounted, and basically they take a piece of that fiber optic material and they slide it through these little holes here on either side, and then you can see where they've dulled, they flattened out, looks like with heat, on the end of that, to basically keep it from being able to go back and forth. I did see someone post a video, and they did a very lengthy review on this site, very critical of this, saying it fell out. And I looked at it, and apparently the one that they had just didn't get, secured properly like this, and it was able to move back and forth. I've actually got some other pistols with fiber optic that don't have this, and you can actually push them in and out to replace them. So I didn't experience any problems with this moving, much less coming out, but obviously the ones I had look like they're put in correctly. So no issues there. But once again, just kind of overall build quality on the thing, and just not quite as great as what I would like, but once again, that's not everything. It is a relatively lower priced revolver, and so maybe that's part of the trade-off, is going to be your quality. Alright, so obviously let's talk about the range. So, we're able to get this thing out and take some shots, and I have some good observations all the way around on this one. The first one is, I got to come back to this trigger guard. This really got on my nerves really fast. And once again, it's not a problem for everybody. If you've got medium or small hands, or especially small fingers, you may not have as much trouble. But to me, even with even if you had small fingers, it just seems like a really small trigger guard, and getting into it just wasn't as natural and intuitive as it is with virtually every other revolver that I have, whether it's a polymer or whether it's a metal revolver. Most of the ones I have got decent sized trigger guards you can just drop right into, and so that bothered me a little bit. So a couple other things. So when you've got your exposed hammer obviously here, so you can go to single action, and the single action trigger pull on this gun to me is pretty good. Breaks very cleanly. It feels good. I was able to hold and control this weapon very easily and make very good accurate shots with this. Now I used 357 and 38 range ammo. I used Federal, I used Winchester, I used a lot of different stuff. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what was the most accurate as far as a defensive round was the gold dot here, the 38 Special plus P, 135 grain. This was the most accurate round that I was able to put through this gun. And that could just be me, but I've got several 357s, and it seems like every one of them, that ends up being one of the better rounds. So we talked about the single action trigger pull, which is pretty good. Now the double action trigger pull, I pull through this, it feels really, really rough, and it just all of a sudden snaps through. It breaks really sloppy. I've got a lot of other revolvers that their double action trigger pull just seems a lot smoother. This, you get to a certain point and you feel it loading up and you have no idea where it's going to break. And I really don't like that feel at all. As a matter of fact, taking shots in double action to me were not, they were very inconsistent. My accuracy really went downhill fast with those shots. And just by comparison, I have a lot of double action only revolvers, and like the M&P here comes up, it loads up, very predictable, and you've got a little space there at the end, before it breaks. It's very predictable where it's going to happen. You get to a certain point and then it breaks. The Ruger is the same way. I really like the trigger on this LCR for the same reason. You pull it back, it loads up, it reaches a very predictable point, and then you've got that last little bit of trigger pull. Let me show you that again. You come back, and then you've got that little bit. So it loads up very predictably. Now probably the best revolver I have with that is going to be the Kimber, the little K6S here. You bring that around, it loads up, and you've got a nice spot here left. You can come on back, and just like that, it's just beautiful. And then there's that last little bit at the end. So virtually every revolver that I have has got a better double action trigger than this one. So that was a bit of a disappointment for me. Now, once again, it really depends on what your priorities are, what's important to you. For me, and you've heard me say this, if you've watched my other videos, you've heard me say this, but to me, if you have a double action, single action, whether it's a revolver or an automatic, the semi-autos, I always pay attention, I try to get double action if I can, because that trigger pull to me is a type of safety. I'm not just going to accidentally pull through this much trigger. But if it's that sloppy, I don't feel as good about that. I mean, obviously I can still draw the gun and I can fire it in a hurry if I need to, but my accuracy is not going to be that good, of course. And then your alternative is to remember to pull it and draw it and get into single action when you go to take that shot. But if you're in a hurry, which if you're in a situation where you're going to be using your gun defensively, you're probably going to be in a hurry. And your fine motor skills tend to go out the window when those kinds of things happen. So pulling that gun and remembering to go to single action mode, that would be something that would take some practice. So for me, in single action, the gun did very well, very accurate at the range. I was really happy with the groups. And like I say, the sight, that little fiber optic in that notch sight there, It was pretty good. It was a very reliable, easy, duplicatable sight picture and very duplicatable results on the paper. So no problems there. But the double action, not so much. So not a bad shooter overall in single action, but could definitely use some work in the double action department. All right, so obviously we're going to talk about carry. Wouldn't be a concealed carry channel video if we didn't talk about that. Well, I don't have any Kydex that this fits, but what I found on hand that did work pretty well, a sticky MD5 fit it. It was a little close, just a little bit of trigger guard was showing. The MD6 was a little bit better, so I think the MD6 is actually the perfect fit for this, but if I have an MD5, I think that's not bad as well. So with the 3-finger trigger guard, I thought that this was going to be an issue, but it's really not, because when you get right down to it, like I said, comparing it to other revolvers, the LCR's 2-finger grip is just about the same size as the Taurus's 3-finger grip. So I was able to carry this weapon in the waistband, and I didn't have any noticeable issues with comfort versus the other ones that I have carried that way. The little Smith & Wesson, the M&P here, the Bodyguard, I've carried it in the same way, and very comfortable. The Ruger LCR, same thing, carried it sticky, and it didn't feel any different than any of these others. So that was pretty good. And it's small enough and light enough that you don't really pay that much attention that you have it. So for consistent daily carry, it's actually not a bad option. If you are happy with the feature set and the other considerations of the firearm from a comfort standpoint, it does a pretty good job. So no issues there. So final thoughts on the 605 Protector Poly. Well, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, this is a revolver that is almost a great option. This is almost a great revolver because the price is pretty decent. The sights are not bad. Your grip options are pretty good, and I think it's interesting. They actually give you 2, and you've got your safety feature where you can lock the hammer there, and so those are good things. But like I say, I do have some concerns for me, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just picky, but I just really feel like the build quality on this thing, just overall, it just looks really cheap. And I have other pistols that are in the same kind of price range that don't look and feel as cheap. The cylinder eject, like I say, it's very stiff, and it just doesn't seem like it should be that way. The small trigger guard, and once again, this is going to depend, on you. For me, hand size matters. I've got a big hand, and I've got big fingers. But I think even if you had tiny fingers, you just don't have a lot of room to get your finger inside there, and I think that's for me anyway, it's an issue. And of course, the double action trigger pull to me is just, I just really don't like it. It's really awful. And I generally like these little revolvers. I mean, a 2-inch revolver for me is a good option. I like them. I like carrying these kinds of guns. But in light of the quality issues and the less than ideal trigger on this thing, I've got too many good options. Between stuff like the Smith and the LCR, I've got some of the metal Smiths too, and Kimber. There's just too many revolvers, I think, that do a better job of what this one's trying to do. So Taurus, if you're watching this and you listen, if you could do a little something about this trigger guard and maybe do something with this section right here, this build quality, there's just something, there's something about it that just feels cheap. there's just a couple things that could be done to make this better, because the gun shoots well in single action. A little work on the trigger and the trigger guard and the build quality, and I think this gun, would be worth something. I think it'd be a viable option for me. But looking at it, and the main reason why it surprises me is because I've looked at some other Taurus products here lately that look really good. We did a video not long ago on the Taurus G3C, and the build quality on that semi-auto was really good. And this is a low-priced, very well-priced semi-auto, and the features are good. Magazines, there's a lot of good things about it. So I know that Taurus has got the capability of giving us a good quality product for the money. They come close with this, but we need to get a little better. So those are my overall thoughts. Like I say, it's still probably a good option for some people, because maybe some of my concerns don't apply to you. I just want to make sure that people see everything, because some people are like me and they have those considerations. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up, everyone, for the Taurus 605 Protector Poly. Once again, we really appreciate you watching and coming back to us. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. Like I say, if you just find that little button down there in the right-hand corner, you can hit that if you're on a computer, or you can scroll down below the video and you can subscribe there. It really helps us out a lot, and we appreciate it. Also, once again, want to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for helping us out with firearms. They're really good people. www.donsweapons.com is where you can reach them. Good folks. We appreciate them as always. So that'll do it. Until next time, we really appreciate you. Be careful out there, and we'll be back very soon with another video. So until then, have a good day. Thank you.